Tonight, Innu families mourn the children that never came home from hospital.
Ask for forgiveness and understanding, and ask that we unite. That was what I was trying to do with my comments, as you remember.
Plus, Manitoba's premier says he's sorry for his comments about colonialism.
It's a miracle I'm here.
And a Yukon woman has a message for those hesitant to be vaccinated. Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. On Friday, the Canadian government and First Nations leaders reached a proposed settlement of a national class action lawsuit over the lack of potable water on reserves. The deal, which remains to be finalized, would be worth nearly $8 billion. Of this, $1.5 billion would go to compensating 142,000 people from 258 First Nations across the country who've had to consume unsafe water. Ottawa would also spend at least $6 billion to ensure reliable access to clean water on reserves. The settlement would include the creation of a First Nations Advisory Committee on Safe Drinking Water and $400 million to establish a First Nation Economic and Cultural Restoration Fund.
These communities have suffered the effects of not having clean water in their communities. It's a federal responsibility to right that wrong, and it's something that's happened in some cases over a quarter of a century. This is an agreement that will be proactive in nature, insofar as if we fail in our obligations, it'll be easy for a community to take us to task and get repair pretty quickly, as opposed to a long drawn-out court process. So I think it's positive in a number of ways. It shows the commitment that we have as a government, but also our job to honor what we've said we were going to do, and the communities have that trust because they now have a document in hand that will evidence that commitment.
With fears of a fourth wave of COVID-19 looming over the country and a possible federal election on the horizon, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says now isn't the right time for Canadians to be going to the polls.
I think it's not the right time to have an election. I think Justin Trudeau should be focused on getting everyone vaccinated. I think that should be our primary focus. We need to make sure people get the help they need. We know that a lot of people have sacrificed and have struggled. We need to continue to deliver the help that they need. Also, Justin Trudeau made a lot of promises. If he wants to deliver on those promises, let's get back to Ottawa and pass more legislation, get more help delivered to more people. I think that's the right thing to do.
Singh says the only reason the Prime Minister would choose to move forward with an election is so he can secure more power for his party. And the Innu Nation says reconciliation has been attacked after what they say is a backroom deal between Canada and Newfoundland and Labrador, announced by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Newfoundland Premier Andrew Furey a week ago. $2.2 billion will go to the over-budget Muskrat Falls Hydro Project in Labrador. It's to keep electricity rates low when the project comes online in November. The Innu Nation signed an impact benefit agreement so Muskrat Falls could be built on their lands. The Innu expected to get the cash payments after the project's debt was paid off. Trudeau announced his government will guarantee the debt, and the Innu believe Muskrat Falls won't make a profit anytime soon, and now they worry they'll never see a cent from this agreement. Today, Grand Chief Etienne Rich reminded everyone whose land Muskrat Falls sits.
And I think Prime Minister Trudeau and the Premier Furey, they need to put that in their head, because that project is considered by Innu. And that project is inside our land claim territory. And I think they need to, I think both Liberal governments are really owing the really big apology to the Innu Nation.
Manitoba Premier Brian Pallister spoke to the media for the first time in over 2 weeks, and he apologized for his comments on the colonial history of Canada last month. In July, Pallister said colonists didn't come here to destroy, but to build, and defended those comments in the days afterwards. Indigenous leaders demanded an apology and that he resign, while the former Indigenous Relations Minister resigned following the comments. Pallister today released a statement saying he wishes his words had been said differently so they could be understood better. He said his message was about building up together on the principles of reconciliation.
Ask for forgiveness and understanding, and ask that we unite. That was what I was trying to do with my comments, as you remember. I was trying to unite people to build, as our Indigenous people have done for millennia, as our Métis population's done, as our more recent immigrants have done, try to build together. I think that's what we have the opportunity to do now as a result of the horrible shock that many Canadians are experiencing with the discovery of unmarked graves. And so I'm hopeful we can move forward, and I do apologize for the misunderstanding I caused.
RCMP in Manitoba announced they have charged a suspect in the death of a Nissequoyesik Cree Nation woman. Bobby Lynn Moose was 29 years old when she disappeared from a Thompson, Manitoba Walmart on October 1st, 2019. Jack Clarence Flett, 52 of Thompson, is charged with first-degree murder according to an RCMP press release. Her body was discovered 16 days later. None of the charges against Flett have been proven in court. The Mounties say they spent more than 25,000 hours on the investigation, and officers spoke with 1,600 people. They also sent out 1,000 pamphlets in Cree to gather information from the community. And Calgary police are investigating how a woman died in RCMP custody in Tuktoyaktuk, Northwest Territories. According to a news release from the Calgary police, the woman was taken into custody Saturday night and died nearly 2 hours later. The release says it is standard procedure to have an external police agency investigate an in-custody death. The cause of death is not yet known, and the identity of the woman has not been announced. An autopsy is scheduled for tomorrow. Calgary police say more details are likely to be released afterward. APTN have contacted Tuktoyaktuk RCMP. They have not responded to our request for comment. A cottage region located near the Manitoba-Ontario border is being evacuated as wildfires move closer to the community. The Manitoba government issued the order for the Davidson Lake Cottage subdivision located in Nopaming Provincial Park. This comes as a wildfire burning in Ontario continues on its track toward Manitoba. A notification for a potential evacuation near Booster Lake, Flanders Lake, and Bird Lake areas were also issued. More than 154 fires are currently burning in Manitoba. Meantime, officials say wildfires across Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Northwest Ontario will continue to bring smoke into all parts of the province until conditions improve. We have to take a short break, but still ahead, a woman in the Yukon is speaking out about her experience battling COVID.
Including coverage of the 100th year anniversary of the signing of Treaty 11. We'll see how communities are coming together to celebrate and learn why the Sahtu Dene view the treaty as a good deal.
We're celebrating our elders thinking about us.
And learn why the Sahtu and Mountain Dene view the treaty as a good deal.
Welcome back. Dozens of First Nations children died or went missing after being transported to a Quebec hospital in the 60s and 70s. Last week, we saw how this legacy has affected the Atikamekw Nation. This week, Sylvie Ambrose visits the Innu community of Pakoshivu, where 10 children since the 1960s were flown to hospital and never came back. Tom Fenario translated and reads this story.
Mary Lalo can't find the words to express her pain. Rather, she put her sadness into fabricating these baby moccasins for the son that she lost. Lalo was not the only one to have lost a child after entrusting him to Quebec's healthcare system. Recently, the Atikamekw Nation hosted this healing gathering for First Nation families who lost a child after they were transported to a distant hospital. Under these circumstances, about 200 First Nations children are unaccounted for from the late 50s to the 70s. Lalo wanted to attend this gathering, but her remote community of Pagwashubu is over 1,000 kilometers away, near the most eastern edge of Quebec. So she sent her daughter Therese instead, along with the baby moccasins that she made. Therese was 3 years old when her little brother Robert was flown to the Blanc-Sablon Hospital. She remembers there was an empty cradle. This was back in June of 1972. The only way to leave Pakwashubu is by boat or plane. So Robert was flown the 110 kilometers to Blanc-Sablon when he caught pneumonia. He was 1.5 years old, and they never saw him again. He's not the only one to have gone missing in Pakwashubu. There are 9 other similar stories here in this tiny community of about 300 people. The details occasionally vary, but they have one thing in common. A child or infant is taken far away to hospital, apparently dies, but no body is ever seen by the families.
1964.
For 57 years, Jerome Mestanapio and Agnes Mestanapio have been married. In August of 1972, Agnes gave birth to a girl in a traditional tent. One week after her daughter's birth, a nurse came to see Mr. Napio in order to examine the newborn. Mr. Napio says she had confidence in the nurse, who she saw as an authority figure. Mr. Napio says the nurse spoke harshly during her visit. She suspects the nurse was not happy that she gave birth without the nurse's assistance. 3 months after the newborn was taken, Mr. Napio was told that her baby had died. For the second child that Mr. Napio lost, she was brought to Blanc-Sablon to give birth, where she says she was heavily medicated during labor. Sophie was the name given to the baby upon birth by the hospital staff. Ever since then, Mr. Napio has been asking herself several questions. In 2017, the National MMIWG inquiry shed a light on many stories like Mr. Napio's. Without a death certificate or proof of burial, many are left asking if their child died, or were they adopted into non-Indigenous families. Dead or alive, the families here all want their missing children found. The government of Quebec is looking to help with Bill 79. The bill will make access to medical documents easier and puts onus on Quebec to assist with requests the families may have. For now, the question for many here is deceptively simple. Bill 79 will be put into force in September, and the search will begin anew shortly thereafter. Because for the families here, without proof of death, doubt will forever persist in their minds. What if my child is still alive? A story by Sylvie Amboise, APTN National News, Pakwashubu, Quebec.
After spending 8 weeks in the hospital battling COVID-19, a woman in the Yukon is speaking out about her experience and cautioning others to get vaccinated. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
It's a miracle I'm here.
Lisa Anderson is lucky to be alive. 2 months ago, the Tondakwichin First Nation citizen from Dawson City, Yukon, was healthy and active. At the time, she was hesitant to get vaccinated against COVID-19.
Because it's so new, I wanted to wait until it was a little bit more researched and established before I considered taking it.
But in early June, Anderson's lungs filled with fluid, and she thought she had pneumonia.
As the day went on, I just felt terrible. I had a fever, I had chills, I was really dehydrated.
Anderson went to the hospital in Dawson City and was given antibiotics, but the next day woke up sicker than before. She went back to the hospital where she tested positive for COVID. By then, her oxygen levels were dropping so low that she had to be medevaced to Whitehorse.
And they put this mask on me that was shooting oxygen, like so much oxygen. The virus had attacked my lungs pretty strongly.
Then her condition took a dangerous turn.
And the anesthesiologist came in and said, basically, we need to intubate you and get you to Vancouver right now. I called my children to say that I'm going to sleep for a while. And I told them that if they just talk to me normally, I'll be able to hear them while I'm sleeping. And it was really hard. My daughter broke down crying.
Not knowing if she'd ever wake up again, Anderson lapsed into a coma for 5 weeks.
And during that time, I did pass away and was resuscitated. The doctors were concerned that I was going to have brain damage due to my lack of oxygen.
Anderson is now COVID-free, but has lost the majority of her muscle mass and will have to go to physical therapy for several weeks so she can walk again. She'll also most likely have long-lasting lung damage.
And there's a good chance that I'll be on puffers for the rest of my life. I'll be followed by a lung specialist team for the rest of my life.
She's hopeful sharing her story will encourage other vaccine-hesitant people to reconsider getting the shot.
Get the vaccine. You don't want this to happen to you. I would never, ever want any of you to have to suffer and go through what I've gone through.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
All right, we have to take one final break, but stick around. Our photo of the day is next. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. This beautiful photo of Peggy's Cove Lighthouse, located in Nova Scotia, was sent in by APTN News' very own Chris Stewart while he was on vacation. Hope you enjoyed your time off, Chris. We invite all our viewers to submit a photo by email to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting in the east, a mix of sun and cloud, and 25 in Charlottetown and 26 in sun in Fredericton. 16 in rain in Nain and 23 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. 25 in rain in Quebec City and 25 in Val d'Or. 27 in a mix of sun and cloud in Peterborough and 28 in a mix of sun and cloud in Sault Ste. Marie. 21 in rain in Timmins and 29 in rain in Sioux Lookout. 19 in rain in Thompson and 30 in rain in God's Lake. 30 in rain in Winnipeg and 29 and raining in Brandon. 29 and more rain in Swift Current and 30 in rain in Saskatoon. The rain continues in Buffalo Narrows and 21 degrees and 19 in a mix of sun and cloud in Uranium City. In the west, 21 in rain in Fort Chipewyan and 27 in a mix of sun and cloud in Grant Prairie. 28 in a mixture of sun and cloud in Calgary and 27 in Edmonton. 26 in sunshine in Vancouver and 29 in Quesnel. 21 in rain in Dease Lake and 28 in a mix of sun and cloud in Prince George. 25 and cloudy in Mayo and 20 in Rock River. 19 and cloudy in Wrigley, and 17 and a mix of sun and cloud in Yellowknife. 18 and sunshine in Colville Lake, and 18 and sunshine in Fort McPherson. 9 degrees and a mix of sun and cloud in Chesterfield, and 9 degrees in Baker Lake. 9 degrees and cloudy in Arctic Bay, and 7 degrees in Resolute. It's been 150 years since the signing of Treaty 1, which spans across Manitoba. Dignitaries and officials from across the nation gathered to celebrate and reflect today. Michelle Karlenzig has more.
Finally, the binding of the Treaty 1 nation, what does that mean?
Dozens of people gathered today at the National Heritage Site Lower Fort Garry, outside of Winnipeg, the grounds where Treaty 1 territory was signed 150 years ago. Officials and chiefs came from across Turtle Island to commemorate the day. While they celebrated how far Treaty 1 nation has come, they also reflected on the progress that still needs to be made.
A lot of it has caused, I think, a significant barrier to First Nations well-being. And so, you're talking about health transformation now, we're talking about child welfare changes, we're talking about, changes to the justice system, how do we create more oversight, how do we have a system that's responsive to creating well-being, creating quality of life outcomes that are better. And so all of that is our hope for the future, and these sorts of things are our recognition of where we've been to prepare us for where we're going.
National Chief Roseanne Archibald and Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller were just some of the dignitaries who spoke. Minister Miller talked about Canada's dark history, but kept things optimistic.
There are difficult conversations to continue in and around land and around rights, about respect. And you heard today a number of the treaty chiefs express that, but also, and I think sometimes that's lost in the general narrative, is a message of hope.
Medals were given out to treaty leadership to act as a symbol of unity. Treaty 1 celebrations will continue until August 9th. Michelle Karlenzig, APTN News, Winnipeg.
And a powwow was held nearby to commemorate the signing of Treaty 1. Here at Nawe-Odena, a site formerly known as the Kapyong Military Barracks, dancers, drum groups, and regalia were on full display. APTN's Brittany Guillot spoke to people who were there to celebrate.
It's really important to celebrate the Treaty 1 150th commemoration celebrations because it recognizes that we're still here and we're still keeping up with our promises in regards of the treaty agreement between the Treaty First Nations and the British Crown.
It's important because I think it's really historic to, witness the anniversary of 150 years just because, in 50 years it's going to be like 200 years, right? So it's like really special to be here just to see that happen.
Well, I think it's very significant and honoring to be here because of our ancestors that signed treaties 150 years ago.
It's so nice to see celebrations like powwows being held again. You can just see how much it actually means to people. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's edition of APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. I'm Daryl Stranger. Have a great night.